If the Denver Broncos hire Dan Quinn or anybody else for their head coaching job, who could some potential offensive coordinator candidates be that could be tasked with turning the Denver Broncos offense around? Plus, it's NFL Divisional Playoff weekend. Sayre, Bedinger, myself, we're going to share our thoughts on the matchups on Saturday and Sunday, share our picks. We're going to challenge you to share yours with us as well. You get that and much more on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Happy Friday. Welcome back into a brand new episode, Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast here on the Locked On NFL Network, your team every day from the South Stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, joined alongside by my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. Both of us, we cover the Denver Broncos for the Locked On Network and 9 News. Thank you once again, Broncos country, for making this podcast your first listen of the day every single day. You can get this podcast free and available everywhere you get your podcast in audio format. Not to mention, you can watch us here on YouTube, the channel Locked On Broncos. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss out on a day's worth of Denver Broncos news, content, coverage, and analysis. We have you covered here. Sayre, great to see you again, my friend. Obviously, hey, playoffs, they're coming around the corner here. Obviously, in a day, some really good games on Saturday, great games on Sunday. This is where the NFL competition, the playoffs, ramps things up, and we just miss, I know, getting the memories of, for example, the Broncos beating the Patriots in the AFC Championship game on this date several years ago, back when they had Terrence Knighton to go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, unfortunately, we don't talk about that Super Bowl because they lost, but always a great memory to see these things here, and obviously things are going up. But look, a lot to talk about today, some potential offensive coordinator candidates that Broncos fans should maybe try to get to know, with a possibility of them maybe coming to Denver, depending on who is hired as head coach.
I'm excited to talk about all of it, Cody. I'm especially excited to talk about, after my season predictions for the Denver Broncos, I was 7-10 on those predictions, Cody, because I predict the Broncos to win every single game. So I never want to be the guy that predicts them to lose, and I'm right. So I was 7-10 on my Broncos predictions this season. But I know you and I don't make a ton of predictions, but last week I batted 1,000 on those playoff picks, man.
Good,
and I know that
man.
wasn't necessarily tough, but man, we got those underdogs. I know you and I were both on the 49ers. I think I had the Rams instead of the Cardinals. And then otherwise, I mean, dude, you and I, we're on the wavelength. So if people are betting, I mean, you listen to all these betting ads, people, like, let's get with the program here. Listen to Cody and I. We know what we're talking about. We got these NFL playoff picks locked in.
Yeah, I got one wrong. It was the Cardinals, and I was really thinking that the Cardinals were going to show us something, and unfortunately, based on what we saw, they let me down. I believe it was I lost the one game there, so I should have chose the Rams. I would have went undefeated as well. But Sayre was the hot man this weekend, and Broncos country, NFL community. If you're watching this, let's get you involved as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But hey, Sayre, let's dive into some topics here, because I think everybody so enamored right now in Broncos country about the head coaching search, right? And obviously, it's the hot topic. Who's going to be the next head coach for this Broncos organization? And some people have even thrown the question, well, who's going to be the offensive coordinator for this Broncos team, regardless if it's Dan Quinn that's hired as the head coach or somebody else? It could be my Uncle Rico that gets hired as the head coach. Who's going to be the OC? There are a lot of interesting names, and you just released an article over at predominantlyorange.com about 6 potential candidates that Broncos fans should keep an eye on. So let's start off with one potential option here. Obviously, in Green Bay, quarterback coach, it is Luke Getze, who's already interviewed for the head coaching job. And you mentioned he could be a strong candidate. And obviously, he's the offensive coordinator. He's been the offensive coordinator at Mississippi State. He's got it. He's worked with Aaron Rodgers. The situation here when looking at Getze is the fact that even though he got the head coaching interview with the Broncos, more than likely, this was the perception, is at least him potentially being interviewed for the OC job while being interviewed for the head coaching job.
That's kind of what I see it as, right? It seems that way. Like, you look at Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator of the Packers, and you kind of think, okay, I could see why he would be the ideal candidate. He's been a coach for a really long time. He's now been an offensive coordinator at a couple different spots. So the natural progression would seem to be head coach. But for Luke Getze, the natural progression right now doesn't seem to be head coach. But you interview a guy like that. Why? You interview a guy like that because you're going to get his plan for the offense. And then if you hire a defensive-minded coach, you could bring a guy like Luke Getze in and say, hey, we really like his offensive plan. We really like what he kind of laid out for us of how he's going to use the weapons, what he would do at the quarterback position. You got a full, probably 4+ hour meeting presentation on that already. So you already know what he's going to bring to the table. So if you say, to Dan Quinn or somebody else like Jonathan Gannon, maybe, who apparently, according to Benjamin Albright on Twitter, he's the dark horse candidate. So you hire a defensive coach, you bring in a guy like Getze and say, hey, we like these two guys as their plan, and you get two of the candidates that you hired for head coach. All of a sudden, George Paton looks like a genius.
Well, another way to look at it as well, and I think you made a great point in terms of like, if you're interviewing other guys that maybe become the head coach, you could say, hey, we interviewed this guy. We really liked what he said in terms of his vision would be for this offense. Maybe look into interviewing him when you become the head coach and see if you want to bring him on. That's exactly what I think could happen. Like, even if these guys have zero ties to each other, what the Broncos are doing, what George Paton and his council that is eventually going to make the decision to hire the next head coach, they are looking at all these options. And I guarantee you, one of the major notes involves, what do you plan to do at quarterback? What also is your plan to transform the Broncos offense with all this talent? And I imagine whoever the head coach is, they're going to see some of those interview questions and some of those plans, and it's going to help them formulate things. I think that's an underrated aspect that never gets looked at in the hiring process. Everyone's like, oh, they're just going to hire their friends or buddies like that. I think that the Broncos, I think George Paton, even though he's going to make the decision to hire the next head coach, he will have a strong influence in potentially the offensive coordinator as well. Rightfully so. You want to have some oversight in that, and George Paton does. Now, another intriguing topic on here, another candidate that I think Broncos country should really keep an eye on. We hear his name all the time, Mike McDaniel. He's the OC by title in San Francisco, has Denver ties. He's part of the QB collective. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see a little bit more about Mike McDaniel outside of his crazy fun press conferences that he has, Mike Jones, that's what the latest one that he did there with the San Francisco 49ers beat reporter. One of the things that he does really well, he explains it. So go on Twitter at the Twitter handle at QB Collective. Watch the videos of Kyle Shanahan, of Sean McVay, some of the stuff and the terminologies from the clinics that they do alongside with Mike Shanahan. It is fantastic stuff. He worked with Dan Quinn in Atlanta, as you mentioned. There was a story about his personal growth and obviously prevailing through alcoholism, which I never knew until I saw that article that was shared by Benjamin Albright on Twitter. And obviously I relate very closely with that with some of the people in my life. Love the story of him persevering. And then, you pose a big question here on our show notes. Would, Kyle Shanahan potentially let him go on a lateral move for Dan Quinn? Now, the question here is, everyone is going to ask that. Isn't that considered a lateral move where you can't do that? The interesting part, and I wonder if there's anything in the NFL about this, Mike McDaniel is listed as the offensive coordinator by title, kind of like Eric Bieniemy, but we know who calls the plays. It's Kyle Shanahan.
That's right. And I think absolutely that is something to be considered in this whole process. Why? Because Mike McDaniel may not want to leave a really good thing in San Francisco. He's been following Kyle Shanahan literally everywhere. I mean, there was an article that I read, that same article that I read, that talked about him riding his bike in Greeley to Broncos training camp practices. So
Yep.
obviously the ties to the Shanahan family are very strong with Mike McDaniel, but at the same time, he is rising up in the head coaching ranks. And I think for me, Cody, we keep talking about this and it gets so loosely thrown around. The next Sean McVay, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I feel like Mike McDaniel is the only comparable guy in terms of like personality. And it's like so random that he's such a great coach because he doesn't necessarily look like a football player or anything like that. He's just a really smart guy who gets the game. And I know Sean McVay was a football player, so people don't need to comment and tell me because I know that he was a wide receiver at Miami, Ohio.
He was a stud.
He was good. Yeah, he was good. So Mike McDaniel, and I think, his Yale education, obviously a very perceptive guy, very smart guy. The fact that he has worked with so many different teams that Kyle Shanahan has been part of is very, very attractive to me. And it makes you wonder, like, did John Elway just have the right idea with the wrong name attached to it back in 2019 when he hired Rich Scangarello instead of Mike McDaniel? And you got to wonder, is Kyle Shanahan sitting there just laughing like, I can't believe nobody's hiring this guy, but he keeps promoting him, and he does that because he doesn't want somebody to just be able to go ahead and steal him away. Like, he has to give permission for teams to interview him as head coach right now, but he doesn't have to give them permission to talk to him as offensive coordinator.
Oh, something to look at as well. And we have a couple names, too, that we haven't talked about yet, Broncos coach, we're going to throw out here coming up in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, Locked On Broncos. We prepare for NFL divisional weekend here in the playoffs. So good friends over there at betonline.ag, and BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year, and they have a brand new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today, and you can receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to get that deposit bonus here today. That's one word, locked on, ladies and gentlemen, to get started. From football, basketball, boxing, hockey, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Sayre, jumping into the second half action on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Once again, Broncos country, thank you for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on your favorite podcasting provider. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your interaction here on the YouTube channel or on Twitter. Be sure to tweet us. Also, drop your comments down below. Let's talk Broncos football, ladies and gentlemen. Kind of continue on our conversation, Sayre, on some potential offensive coordinator candidates. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see the list that Sayre had created, go check it out at predominantlyorange.com. A lot of great insight and his perspectives there. You get to hear it here, but if you want to see it in writing, you get to see it over there too. So we left off with Mike McDaniel, obviously a brilliant mind in the offensive side of the ball. When you go to the QB Collective Twitter handle, like I encouraged you, Broncos country, go check it out. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. This next guy, I think, is super intriguing, and I have been a big fan of him, and I think that he was obviously a big proponent of the Los Angeles Chargers' offensive success a couple of years ago when Justin Herbert was a rookie. Pep Hamilton. And he has spent time with the Houston Texans organization this past offseason. I think that we can maybe attribute a lot of their success on offense, the success that they did have, and obviously what Davis Mills was able to do, large in part due to Pep Hamilton and obviously what he's been able to do. Obviously, we talk about guys like Justin Herbert. You go through and you take a look at Davis Mills, Andrew Luck. He's spent time with a lot of guys. And also, he spent time even at Michigan. I like this candidate. And the one good thing, too, he's already been reached out to by one team to be an offensive coordinator. That was the Carolina Panthers. And he said, no, I'm turning it down. Maybe that changes for Denver. I don't know. I want to know your thoughts on this.
I love it. I absolutely love it. If there's any way that we can convince Andrew Luck to come out of retirement, you got to wonder if Pep Hamilton is the key. No, I'm just all kidding aside. I mean, as fun as that would be, I feel like you've got to look back. I mean, he was working with Luck, not just with the Indianapolis Colts, but all the way back at Stanford, where he also worked for Jim Harbaugh, by the way. So, that's another topic that we may have to touch on, because he might be joining the AFC West one way or the other with Jim Harbaugh or with the Denver Broncos. But you love the work that he did, obviously, with Andrew Luck. But Andrew Luck, obviously, an exceptional talent. Justin Herbert, kind of the same way. But at the same time, it can't be understated the fact that Pep Hamilton was coaching in, I believe it was the AAF or the XFL or whatever it was right before the pandemic hit. He's coaching there, and then he goes straight to the NFL as the Chargers draft a rookie quarterback in a pandemic. And there were plenty of question marks about Justin Herbert at the time. Cody, you remember, I know you watch a lot of Oregon football. I know that for a fact. So there was plenty of question marks about Justin Herbert. So for Pep Hamilton to do the job that he did in 2020 with Justin Herbert, I feel is very, very underrated. And then the Davis Mills thing in 2021, that might be the most heroic of them all. I mean, I don't know that anyone expected Davis Mills to look like one of the better rookie quarterbacks in the league. But quite frankly, he was better than Justin Fields. He was better than I'm just going to say this. He was better than Trevor Lawrence from what I saw. I mean, you hate to say it as of right now. He was better than Zach Wilson. Obviously, Trey Lance didn't really play. So Davis Mills was right up there among the best rookie QBs in the league. And so I think Pep Hamilton deserves a ton of credit. I think he deserves a long look for teams that need an offensive coordinator. And the fact that he spurned the Panthers makes things really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, it really is. Davis Mills had the best passer rating in the red zone in the entire NFL this season. So, let Davis Mills be great, ladies and gentlemen. Houston, maybe the Broncos swing a trade from him. I'm joking. Broncos country, don't get pissed at me. I know those topics are a little sore for you. We're not going to do that, I promise you. Some other names you throw here in terms of honorable mention, haven't seen his name brought up at all during this current hiring cycle, and that's Joe Brady, who was fired by the Carolina Panthers, obviously in the middle of the season. And I remember that going into last year, we even talking about, hey, maybe next year, if the Broncos move on for Vic Fangio, maybe Joe Brady might be one of those names that we're looking at. As of right now, it seems like his NFL value is low. Some concerns about the fact that they don't even practice a 2-minute drill. They don't even practice red zone. maybe kind of speaks volumes to some of the offensive products we saw there. I don't know if Broncos fans want Joe Brady now. And it's so crazy how when we talk about these coordinators, we talk about guys like Kellen Moore, it's so crazy how fast the narrative changes. We got local Denver reporters, local Denver writers talking about this is a great candidate for the Denver Broncos to be a head coach. And then a week later, this is the worst candidate potentially for the
Yeah.
Denver Broncos ahead. Like they switch it up. Like what has changed? Like groupthink is dangerous, folks. Let's stay away
Yes,
from
it
groupthink.
is.
Form your own opinion. Do your own research. I get it. I get you. You guys come to people who are trusted, and you come to us, and hopefully we can provide you with accurate enough information where you can formulate your own opinion. And we're not trying to encourage your opinion to be one way or the other. We just want to present you as much information as possible and look at it both ways. That's it. So there's Joe Brady, Mike Kafka, a quarterback coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Might always be great to kind of pick the brain there, but then again, they got a really good quarterback in Mahomes. Will Andy Reid let him potentially go? And then you mentioned Tim Kelly. Obviously, spent some time with the Houston Texans as well. I'm not sure necessarily any of these guys will be legitimate options. I feel like if anything, the top three right now would definitely be Pep Hamilton, Mike McDaniel, and Luke Getze, probably from the onset here, which I'm not opposed to it, Sarah. So, Broncos country, let us
Okay.
know your thoughts here. But, Sarah, let's get into some NFL playoff discussion now. Obviously, sore subject. No Broncos in the playoffs here, divisional round. Always a bummer here. But there are some really good games, and it starts out on Saturday, Sarah. And look, the Cincinnati Bengals, who I've said are the most dangerous team in the NFL playoffs right now, they're traveling to take on the Tennessee Titans, who are the 1 seed. They get Derrick Henry back. I think one thing to look at is Henry has not had football contact except for yesterday. Yesterday was his first padded contact practice since he broke his foot and had surgery. That'll have a little bit of an impact on him finding rhythm. I expect him to have a little bit of rust, but then again, he's a genetic freak. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't rusty. However, I think the Cincinnati Bengals, having played games there and having big stakes on the line, I think that they're going to go into Tennessee, and I think they're going to win. I got them as my pick. Your thoughts on this game?
That's a big one. The number 1 seed in the AFC going down. I've been underrating the Tennessee Titans, Cody, all year long. Like I can't believe they're the number 1 seed in the AFC.
So
That's
weird
just
when you look
crazy
at
to
it.
me. Yeah, it's like I mean, without Derrick Henry, of course, everyone kind of thought that things would just really taper off quickly. So I just assume without Derrick Henry, I mean, they're going to falter. They're not going to be as good. But they've been really good. I mean,
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel is a good coach, and they've done a great job there. I'm just for the sake of us going opposite directions here. I'll go with the Titans. I'll say
Okay.
that King Henry comes back and he dominates this game. Maybe Joe Burrow, who led the league in interceptions at one point. I don't know if he finished in the league lead, but maybe he throws a couple of bad passes in this game and the Titans are able to control it on the ground. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in this game, but if Derrick Henry plays, I'm taking the Titans.
Okay. All right. That's fair. And look, Broncos country NFL community, let us know your picks here as well. One thing we want to do, like drop your picks to all this weekend's games in the YouTube comment section, and let's see how many people get a perfect record. Obviously, picking the picks, who comes the closest, who has the most efficiency. That'll be a fun thing. Drop that in the comment section down below. Let's get to one of the other games, the final Saturday game. Obviously, Broncos country is probably watching this one very closely, right? Because San Francisco 49ers, we talked about Mike McDaniel. We talked about the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, the big focus of yesterday's show. And I think that we were talking about the fact that, ideally, I think Green Bay is going to win. They're going to be my pick. But I think Broncos country and the rooting interest of maybe Aaron Rodgers potentially being done with Green Bay, they want San Francisco to win this game. They want Aaron Rodgers and the Pack to be one and done here in the playoffs, despite the high expectations. And maybe that sours the perspective of him towards returning to Green Bay and opens up maybe a pathway to the Denver Broncos. I'm going to go with the Packers in this one, though.
I am as well. I'm taking the Packers, and it's simple. I mean, they're just they're just a way better team overall. I think the 49ers have caught fire at the right time. But look, the injury to Jimmy Garoppolo, him kind of playing through the injury, and who knows what the status of Nick Bosa is going to be after
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything after he went into the locker room in the last game. That's obviously going to be huge. So you need a lot to go right for you in order to beat a team like the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers in specific. I'm taking the Packers in this game pretty handily. I feel like they're going to win by quite a bit.
Awesome. Broncos country, let us know your picks for Saturday's games. It's Cincinnati Bengals, Tennessee Titans, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. Drop them in the comment section down below. Coming up here in just a moment, we're going to look at Sunday's games. Obviously, a former Denver Broncos is going to be in the spotlight against a former Denver Broncos foe. We can't wait to talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. That is our good friends over there at Built Bar. Ladies and gentlemen, it's New Year's. Obviously, everyone has their New Year's resolution. Some of them is to eat healthier and also be healthier. Well, guess what? What if I told you you can take a bite into a protein bar that is built with 100% chocolate and it's soft and easy to chew and it's not going to affect any of your New Year's goals? Let me tell you about Built Bar, ladies and gentlemen, the best tasting protein bar that is out there on the market. They have 9 amazing, delicious flavors, including the occasional limited time flavor. Like right now, my all-time favorite, churro puffs, are available at built.com. Check it out today for a flavor for you or your family and get a box delivered directly to your house. If you need a little bit of extra fuel to get through your day, go to built.com. Check it out because the bars have 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar. Ladies and gentlemen, that is fantastic for something that is covered in 100% milk chocolate. So go to built.com today to get yourself a box. And when you go to checkout, use promo code LOCKED15. That's going to get you 15% off your next order. Once again, promo code LOCKED15 gets you 15% off at built.com. All right, sir, as we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. Once again, Broncos country, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch us, to listen to us, whether you're on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you for making Lockdown Broncos your first listen of the day. We appreciate you so much for the amazing growth. You guys have helped us grow this channel. You've helped us grow this podcast to top tier status, and we couldn't have done it without Broncos country. Thank you so much. Sayre, let's continue on with some of our NFL divisional picks. We previewed Saturday's games. Let's take a look at Sunday's games, more so from a Broncos aspect, because you got the Los Angeles Rams traveling to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another playoff scenario where you have former Denver Bronco, Von Miller, who loves playing in the playoffs against Tom Brady, taking on Tom Brady, former hated Denver Broncos rival. I think Broncos fans are now really coming along to Tom Brady. We like Tampa Tom, not so much New England Tom. But Von Miller, I really just want to highlight here in this matchup, man, he has been playing so dang good. He looked in playoff form, obviously, against the Arizona Cardinals. The big question in this matchup specifically that I have the Rams winning this one. That's going to be my pick here. But if Tristan Wirfs cannot play, man, I expect Von Miller to have a big day against Tom Brady.
I do too. I'm with you on picking the Rams, man. I'm sticking with them. I'm sticking with Von Miller. I feel like, like I tweeted out, this is the father-son matchup that we've all been waiting for in the playoffs. Von Miller and Tom Brady. So all kidding aside, I'm excited for this game. I'm very, very pumped to watch Von Miller play in a high-stakes game again. And it's gonna be good football, man. This is just fun, best on best. Like you love watching a player like Tom Brady go up against a guy like Von Miller and just a smart coaching staff on both sides of the ball. I feel like this is going to be a great game, but I'm taking the Rams.
I loved what Peyton Manning said on the Manningcast as well. He said, Von Miller is the best athlete that I have ever played with. Like that right there, that type of praise is no BS from a guy like Peyton. Like he truly means it. And he says, like, there were times in one-on-one situations in practice, he would come and cover the wide receivers. He would intercept me. He would knock passes down. Like he would literally come to those one-on-one drills with receivers, match up with guys like Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and he would cover them. So maybe that's why Vic Fangio wanted to drop him into coverage a couple times early on in the season before he got traded away to the LA Rams. And even there was one time with the LA Rams, one play I saw where they did have him cover inside the slot. So I don't think you're going to see too much of that here this week, but we could see Von Miller drop back into coverage kind of similar to the AFC Championship game just several years ago when the Broncos last faced the Patriots in that victory. He might drop back, cover Rob Gronkowski, and maybe come away with an interception again. That would be awesome to see here. But yes, Broncos country, let us know who you think is going to win Los Angeles Rams versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the game I think everybody's the most excited about if you're just an NFL football fan. Two high-scoring offenses, the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. I know for me personally, look, I'm going with the Bills here, and I'm going to be very bold on this podcast today by saying, Sayre, I think the Bills are going to go into Kansas City. I think they're going to blow out the Chiefs. I think it's maybe going to be close in the first half. Bills are going to run away with it in the second half. I think that Buffalo is very dangerous, and I would love to see former Bronco Emmanuel Sanders get another Super Bowl. I would love to see him do that, have a chance to go to the AFC Championship game next week. And, maybe we want that a little bit for Isaiah McKenzie. Even though things didn't work out in Denver, hey, happy for you, Isaiah McKenzie. You're balling right now in Buffalo. But then the downside of rooting for the Bills and hoping that they beat the Chiefs and picking them is that everybody in Broncos country, we're going to see another weekend of the Denver Broncos should have drafted Josh Allen instead of Bradley Chubb. Like, I don't get into those revisionist history, hindsight, BS recollections here. I'm not going to do it because the circumstances, as we've talked about, completely different. But I'm going Buffalo.
Man, could you imagine how loud that would get if the Bills won the Super Bowl or something like that? I mean, geez,
Oh my
let's not
God.
get too crazy about it, but it would be insane, I feel. I'm actually with you on this one, Cody. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills. And again, just like last week, I knew the Steelers weren't going to beat the Chiefs. And I said, maybe they could present some issues for the Chiefs defensively. And look, they got a big defensive play right away, but that was about the only good play we saw from them the entire game. So I definitely like the Bills better as a team. They looked so good last weekend that, man, it's hard to pick against them right now. As good as the Chiefs have been playing, it's tough to pick against the Bills right now. So I'm taking the Bills as well. Isaiah McKenzie, great. It's great to see him do well. Emmanuel Sanders, love watching him play. And of course, just the fact that you would knock the Chiefs out. That's what we all want to see, right? We all want to see the Chiefs get knocked out. So I feel like, though, the way things are shaping up here, Cody, to me, if Buffalo can win this game, I think they're going to be able to get to the Super Bowl fairly easily. But this is the big test. This is the Everest, right? They have to prove they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The Super Bowl, as long as Patrick Mahomes is playing, as far as I'm concerned, the Super Bowl is going through Kansas City. You got to beat them. And so I feel like Buffalo is a team that can do it. This is the time. They've got to do it right now. They're close, and I think that it's time to get over the top.
I think you make some great points there, Sir, too. I even want to point out as well, like for the Chiefs, let's say they were to beat the Buffalo Bills, and kind of put another landmark there for Josh Allen. Like, oh my goodness, they can't get past the hump. But for the Chiefs, I would love it if they made it to back-to-back Super Bowls and lost. Like, I feel like that'd be demoralizing in a sense of what they're able to do because they're running out of time. They're running out of this window that is there for them to have this dynasty-like effect. And I know for Broncos country, they want Kansas City to lose. Every Broncos fan that I've spoken to, and I've gone around, like I've went to some local coffee shops, I've talked with Broncos fans, and they're like, I just don't want Kansas City to go back there. And if they do make it back there, I want them to lose. And rightfully so, Broncos country. I like that. I think Denver would be okay. Denver fans would be okay with Buffalo, rooting for Buffalo in this instance. Yes, you want to see your AFC West divisional rivals fall. There's always the crowd out there that's like, well, you should always want the people in your division to do well. No, absolutely not. If it were up to me, the Chiefs would be at the bottom of the AFC West if I had any say. If this was Madden and I was in control, they'd be the worst team in the NFL, just by my standards there. But that's just me being salty here, Broncos country. So, Sayre, my friend, hey, I love your picks here. Broncos country, be sure to drop your picks from Saturday and Sunday's games down below. Let's have a little bit of a challenge throughout the weekend. Who has the most accurate picks? How many people get the most accurate picks right? Could it be multiple people? If so, obviously, we'll tune in. We'll react to it here on Twitter and also on YouTube. Be sure to check it out. Locked on Broncos, ladies and gentlemen. But that'll do it for today's episode, Locked on Broncos. Maybe by the next time we have to record an episode on Sunday for Monday, Sayre. Maybe the Broncos might have their next head coach in place. If they do it hire, we'll do an emergency podcast. You'll get that here on the Locked on Broncos podcast. Broncos country, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy playoff football. Broncos will be back at some point, and hopefully in the next year. Can't wait to have you covered with that there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Cody Roark speaking for my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. We'll see you next time for a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.